We just achieved our lifetime goal of sailing full circle around the world on our own boat. So sailing around the world!
Yeah! So after 46,000 miles, we are now back here in Tobago Cays in the Caribbean, where we were last on this island 6 years ago. So after getting here, a lot of people are asking us, what on earth are we going to do next?
Are we stopping sailing? Are we going around again? Are we selling Florence and buying a catamaran? Or is a luxury yacht brand going to give us a boat to carry on sailing?
So in this video, we will answer all of those questions and share with you our future plans.
For the last 6.5 years, we've both been solely focused on our goal of sailing around the world. Everything that we've done has been directly contributing to that goal of sailing around the world. We're both very goal-orientated people, and as we approached the Caribbean and completing our loop, we both started to feel a little bit empty and a little bit lost because we were coming up to achieving that goal. So we both knew that we needed a new challenge, a new target, a new goal to aim for. And we spent a lot of time recently when we've been crossing the ocean just staring at waves, thinking about what that goal and what that new challenge could be. And it's taken a while to get those thoughts together into a sort of coherent plan, but we've now done that. So we're going to share that with you here in this video. We split it down into a short, medium and long-term plan, and that's what we're going to share with you now.
Although we've now completed our loop around the world, for us this journey isn't actually over until we return back to Portsmouth in England, where we left from 6 years ago. So that means another 4,000 miles at least of sailing up through the Caribbean and then across the North Atlantic. And the North Atlantic is actually reputed to be one of the worst passages in an entire circumnavigation. So we've still got some challenges ahead of us.
The way we plan our cruising, we have both a very rigid schedule and a very flexible schedule. We've got some key dates that we have to meet in order to be safe and avoid hurricane and cyclone areas. And then between those key dates, we've got a super flexible plan which we can change at a moment's notice. So going up through the Caribbean, we've now got until May to explore, and we've got no real fixed agenda for that. We're just going to explore through the islands. But in order to be safe from hurricanes, we need to leave the Caribbean before hurricane season, and that coincides with the best time for us to cross the North Atlantic. So we're going to cross the North Atlantic in June, which means we've got until May to explore the beautiful Caribbean islands.
If you watched our videos right from the start, then you might even remember this very beach, because we sailed the dinghy into this exact beach 6 years ago. And I can't say that there's much that's really changed in the Tobago Cays in that time. It is still spectacularly beautiful.
Last time we were on this island, we found some iguanas. So we're going to go and see if we can find them again today. Oh, there's lots of rustling in all the bushes now down here. They're all running away before we get to see them. We found one. He's just disappeared off into the bushes through here. Pretty big iguanas here. So that's still the same.
I wonder if it's the very same iguana. He certainly looked older, but then who are we to talk? sailing north up the island chain, and a lot of those islands are islands that we've visited before, but there are still tons of bays and places that we didn't stop in last time. But once we reach Dominica, it will all be new cruising ground to us again, and we'll follow that island chain up north to the Bahamas. We don't actually have any fixed dates between now and when we need to be crossing the Atlantic in June, other than one in the British Virgin Islands, where our patrons are actually going to be coming out to meet us. We've got a flotilla organised, and we're going to be sailing together and celebrating, circumnavigating the world in the BVIs for a week.
Once we've island topped our way up to the top of the Caribbean, we need to put Florence back into ocean sailing mode, ready to sail back across to England. Now at this point you might wonder why we haven't chosen to stop in the US. Now that's a couple of reasons. One, the insurance for Florence is much more expensive if we go into US waters. Two, the insurance for Amy and I is much more expensive health-wise if we go into America. And also the other reason is it's more difficult to come into the US on your own boat. You can't just get the normal visa on arrival that you get if you came in on, for example, a plane. You actually have to apply for a visa in advance. So that leaves 4,000 miles to sail from here in the Caribbean back across to England. But we're not going to do that all in one hop. We're going to break it down so we get to visit a couple of islands on the way. And the first leg is 1,000 miles, or about a week's sailing, from the Bahamas up to Bermuda. The second leg is the more challenging one, about 2,000 miles or 2 weeks of sailing between Bermuda and the Azores. Now once we get up to the latitude of Bermuda, we are out of the trade winds. So there are two tactical options for sailing across to the Azores. The first one is to take the run-line approach, go a shorter distance but sail in variable winds. And the second option is to sail a longer distance to curve up north into the westerlies and then across and then back down to the Azores. We're not sure which one we're going to take yet. It's going to depend on what the weather patterns are looking like at the time, but that's going to be one of the key decisions we have to make in this Atlantic crossing. The third leg is going to be from the Azores about 1,000 miles up to Ireland, and that should take us about a week. To work out the best time of year to make each leg of this voyage across the Atlantic Ocean, we look at pilot charts, which give us the average wind strength and direction expected for each month of the year across the North Atlantic Ocean. And we also look them up in our World Cruising Routes book. The best time of year to sail from the Bahamas to Bermuda is May. The best time to go from Bermuda to the Azores is June. And from the Azores to Ireland the best time is July, which works out really well, luckily, with what we would like to do anyway. But since we are going to be north of the trade winds, we're going to be sailing in more variable winds for the whole of this passage. So although those are the best times of year to make those passage, they don't guarantee that we're going to have balmy downwind sailing conditions. So the weather could be much more challenging for this final Atlantic crossing to get home. We plan to end up on the south coast of England, back in Portsmouth Harbour in September.
So that plan gets us back to England and fully completes our voyage around the world. But then what? Are we going to quit sailing? The reality is that sailing has been a big part of both of our lives for as long as we can remember, and it would be very hard for either of us to remove sailing from our lives completely. But I guess the question that you really want to know is, are we going to keep living aboard and keep making these videos?
We've known our short-term goal of sailing back to England for years, but originally it would have all ended there. We would have sold Florence, returned to our original careers and rejoined the rat race. But thanks to the support that we've received from you for these videos, when we were crossing the South Atlantic, we started wondering if we could carry on. Could the video income support carrying on sailing Florence? And more importantly and excitingly, where would we go if we could carry on?
So the answer is yes, we would absolutely love to keep sailing full-time and making these videos. But how sustainable that really is depends on the number of views that we receive here on YouTube, and also is down to the support of our amazing patrons. So if you do like these videos, you can help us to grow our audience by subscribing and sharing the videos with your friends, and all of that is totally free. And if you'd like to help us further, then you can join our crew on Patreon, where we share real-time updates and more content. So on to our midterm plans.
So our midterm plan is to spend the winter after we arrive back to the UK in 2023 in the UK, which is going to be a challenge in itself because we haven't seen a winter for 7 years. We've been keeping Florence in the summer part of the globe as we go around the world. So dealing with the cold is going to be a challenge itself. But one of the questions you've been asking is, are we going to get a fancy new boat?
Unfortunately, we are yet to receive any offers of brand new boats from either Oyster or any of the other luxury yacht brands. Maybe if we grow the channel enough and enough of you subscribe, then that might change in the future. So the question is, are we moving to a catamaran?
Unfortunately, we can't afford a catamaran. But to be honest with you, for what we've got planned next, a catamaran isn't really the best thing for us.
So to carry on sailing, we either need to refit Florence or buy a different second-hand monohull.
We've thought long and hard about whether we should keep Florence or buy a different boat. We absolutely love Florence when we're sailing. She's absolutely perfect for sailing short-handed, easily handled by just one person or two people on deck. She sails really well in light winds, and we really enjoy sailing her. The simple systems on board mean that we spend less time hunting around in remote locations for spare parts and more time exploring and experiencing those locations. However,
even though we've been doing a lot of long distance sailing recently, surprisingly, about 80% of our time is still spent at anchor. And so, like many sailors, we often yearn for a little more comfort. Things like a freezer, a water maker, a shower, and general space to swing a cat. So we have thought about the possibility of buying a bigger boat with more space and more power for luxuries.
But we realised that that would not only stretch our budget, but also take more than a year out of our lives to sell Florence, buy the next boat, and then prepare the next boat. And doing what we do now, we know how much life experience can be packed into 1 year. So we're unwilling to take the time out from experiencing the world to change boats. Life is short and you never know what is going to happen around the corner. So we're planning to keep Florence, to refit her, to prepare her for some more challenging sailing, and also to try and make her more comfortable where we can. Or at least to do as much of that as is possible in one winter in the UK so that we can get out sailing and exploring the following summer.
We need to give Florence some love for safely transporting us around the globe. And the list of things that we'd like to do is extensive, both necessary maintenance and improvements that we'd like to make. And for our future plans, things like insulation and a heater are high on the list. So that brings the question of our long-term plans, and we've both decided that we're in need of a change and a new challenge.
Yeah, we've been sailing around in the tropics for 6.5 years, 7 years by the time we get home, and we've done a lot of sailing in trade winds. We've spent a lot of time on the equator, and it's becoming normal, and we really would like some variety in our lives. We've sailed across 4 major oceans now, and when we first sailed across the Atlantic, there was a tingle of butterflies in the stomach and a little bit of anxiety and a little bit of nervousness before we set off. And now we've done so much ocean sailing that in the tropics and the trade winds that we have to remind ourselves to take it seriously, and we don't get that anxious nervousness at the start of the passage anymore.
Yeah, I mean, there's no denying that living in this environment is beautiful, and you could look at the images from here and question why on earth we would want to go anywhere else. But we are in real need of that challenge, and it's very easy to get a challenge in sailing. So where we're planning on going, we're going to have much bigger tides and very different weather to deal with.
Yeah, so we're going to take Florence north from England. So Scotland, the tides around the top of Scotland can be huge. They can run faster than Florence can possibly go.
Yeah.
But we're not going to stop there. We're going to carry on going north, and we're going to take Florence into the Arctic Circle.
Into the Arctic Circle, and stopping in as many places as we can in that time as well. There's so many awe-inspiring places around that area, and with just spectacular scenery and nature, and that really excites us, and it's different, and yeah, it's where we want to be.
But it's going to be cold, and we're not sure if we can cope with the cold. So it's going to be a bit of a test to see where we might go after that. Can we cope with cold weather sailing? Can we cope with higher latitude sailing?
Yeah, it's definitely an experiment to see where might be an option for us in the future, because if it is something that we enjoy and something that we can deal with, that basically opens up the entire world.
But before we head to the cold, icy north, we need to make the most of these beautiful, balmy conditions in the Caribbean.
We've been in the Caribbean for a month now, since arriving into Grenada. And in that time, the weather has actually been full of rain squalls, forcing us to hunker down in more sheltered anchorages. However, this week we've been blessed with clear skies and gentle breezes, perfect conditions to explore the beautiful waters of Tobago Cays. The sandy lagoon is surrounded by several islands and reefs, but there's not much protection from the open ocean, so it's best visited in calm conditions. Tobago Cays has been a marine park since 1993, and it's one of the top spots to visit in the southern Caribbean. We paid 20 EC a night for 2 people and Florence to anchor, but now that price is going up to 100 EC per night.
When we first came to Tobago Cays in 2017, the highlight was my first experience of swimming with turtles. In the last 6 years we have been lucky to swim with many turtles, but sharing the water with these gentle reptiles never gets boring. The smaller turtles here are skittish, but the larger ones seem to be used to snorkelers and just carry on eating and living their lives as we swim alongside. Some of the larger turtles have these suckerfish on them. They seem to be irritating this one, so she wiped them off her belly and then had a good scratch against this rock on the sea floor, seemingly unconcerned about the human with the camera beside her. Perhaps confident in the knowledge that I can't hold my breath for anywhere near as long as her, and would soon disappear to the surface.
Green turtles are an endangered species worldwide, but here in Tobago Cays they have a sanctuary where they can graze on the seagrass and live without threat. Here, they're hunted not for their lives, but instead for their pictures, and they seem happy to tolerate that.
Next time, we have an awesome upwind sail and fully restocked Florence with food ready for months of cruising the Caribbean islands.
Don't forget to subscribe to catch the next episode. We release a video every 2 weeks.
If you'd like to find out more about behind the scenes on Florence, track our progress across the oceans in real time, find out where we are right now, or ask us pretty much anything, then please head over to our Patreon site and join the crew. We would like to thank everyone who supports us to make these videos possible, and a special thank you to our star patrons.